our dear viewers, welcome to the 9 a.m. news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel Ogoige. Now to the news in detail, starting from the news in brief on the African scene. West African bloc ECOWAS stated that its leaders will meet on Thursday on the crisis in Niger, whose military rulers have defied its ultimatum to cede power or face possible military actions. Now, ECOWAS heads of state will hold another extraordinary summit on the political situation in the Republic of Niger. The 15-member bloc said in its first official reaction after Niger ignored Sunday's deadline to reinstate democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum. Now, the summit is to be held in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, whose president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is the current ECOWAS chairman. Earlier Monday, an ECOWAS source said West African nations were not envisaging an immediate military intervention at this stage. Italy and Germany, on the other hand, called for a diplomatic solution in the troubled Sahelian nation. Now, neighboring Mali said it and Burkina Faso, which have both been suspended from ECOWAS over their own military coups, were sending a joint official delegation to Niamey to show solidarity with the people of Niger. Now, they have said military intervention will be tantamount to a declaration of war. Crossing away from that, moving over to the local scene, it's the holiday season and summer holidays are in place. Despite the holiday period, students are taking part in extracurricular activities offered by the schools. However, the purchase of school supplies for the coming academic year remains a major concern for parents. More information in the following report.
The start of the new school year for your offspring is a strategy that every parent develops, but it also requires experience. For this mother, this important step was achieved by a fairly simple method, she confides, while calling on the government to offer loan facilities to parents. On the other hand, the prevailing economic gloom is forcing this mother to opt for a loan to cover her daughter's school fees. She also wants the state to help families in difficult situations.
On se prépare depuis parce qu'on sait que notre enfant ira à l'école, donc on se prépare, on cotise un peu.
We have been preparing since because we know that our children will be going to school, so we have been saving some money for the preparation of school reopening. As I get some money, I save up a little to get some of the things needed. That is how I have been doing, because I know my daughter will need books and pens, so I pay for that first, and I also pay for the uniforms because that is what she will put on to school. So I save up for that first. Sometimes the savings is not enough. We may also depend on loans if the state can also implement this so that parents can also take loans for their children's education. That will also be good. A teacher by profession, this parent says that he started buying school supplies in May to avoid purchasing the school supplies at a higher rate. It is all about organization, he says. A number of stalls selling supplies have been set up in and around Cotonou. For the time being, some parents are buying as much as they can afford.
Away from that, French-Spanish lawyer Juan Branco, who was jailed in Dakar on Sunday in connection with the recent arrest in Senegal, was released on Monday under judicial supervision before being deported, the authorities and his lawyer stated. Now, Mr. Branco entered Senegal illegally several days ago to take part in the defense of opposition politician Ousmane Sonko. Despite a warrant for his arrest, was arrested on Friday evening in Mauritania after several days of searches. Now, he was handed over to the Senegalese authorities and detained on Sunday on various charges. Now, the Minister of the Interior has issued an order to deport him. And in the next few hours, he should leave Senegal. Senegal's Minister of Justice, Ismail Madoufou, stated. Now, he said that he is exhausted but relieved, added Mr. Bintad. Now, the minister said that Mr. Branco had refused to eat or drink while in detention. Mr. Branco was charged on Sunday with attack, conspiracy, spreading false news, acts and maneuvers likely to compromise public security or cause serious political arrest, illegal residence and contempt of court, according to his lawyers. Back to the situation of things in Niger. Niger's mutinous soldiers closed the country's airspace and accused foreign powers of preparing an attack as the junta defied the deadline to restore the ousted president on Monday. Now, Niger State Television announced the move on Sunday night, hours before West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS had demanded that the coup leaders reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum, the democratically elected president, or face military forces. More information in the following report.
Niger's Moutinho soldiers closed the country's airspace and accused foreign powers of preparing an attack as the transitional government defied a deadline to restore the ousted president. Niger State Television announced the move on Sunday night, hours before West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS had demanded that the coup leaders reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum, the democratically elected president, or face military force. In his televised address, coup spokesperson Colonel Major Amadou Abdrahman said the National Council for the Safeguard of the Country is launching a vibrant appeal to its youth, the noble sons and daughters of our country, that they be ready to defend our country.
Concordant information currently in its possession indicates that the forces of a foreign power are ready to attack Niger and its people in coordination with the ECOWAS and armed terrorist groups. The National Council for the Safeguard of the Country warns ECOWAS and the foreign power against all interference in the internal affairs. The National Council for the Safeguard of the Country is launching a vibrant appeal to its youth, the noble sons and daughters of our country, that they be ready to defend our country. Long live the National Council for the Safeguard of the Country. Long live the people of Niger, noble and sovereign. Long live an independent Niger. I thank you.
The July 26 coup in which Moutinho soldiers installed General Abdurrahman Chiani as head of state adds another layer of complexity to West Africa's Sahel region that's struggling with military takeovers, spreading Islamic extremism, and a shift by some states toward Russia and its proxy, the Wagner mercenary group. An ECOWAS delegation was unable to meet with Chiani, who analysts have asserted led the coup to avoid being fired. Now the transitional government has reached out to Wagner for assistance while severing security ties with former colonizer France. Algeria and Chad, non-ECOWAS neighbors with strong militaries in the region, have said they oppose the use of force or won't intervene militarily, and neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, both run by transitional government, have said an intervention would be a declaration of war against them too. The military government in Mali and Burkina Faso called ECOWAS bluff, saying an armed intervention in Niger would be met with force. Guinea also sided with the coup leaders. All three countries plus Niger are suspended from ECOWAS and form part of a military-led belt spanning Africa's Sahel from Guinea in the west to Sudan in the east. It was not immediately clear on Sunday what ECOWAS will do next. All eyes are on the next move by West African leaders who vowed to attack coup leaders in Niger if they fail to free the detained president and revert back to a democratically elected government. The deadline for the threat of force involving troops from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, was on Sunday. The world waits in anticipation to see the next move to be made by ECOWAS. In the semi-arid Sahel that separates coastal Africa and the Sahara, armed groups are swarming like ants in sugar, pulled by a mixture of weak states, bleak economic prospects, burgeoning populations, and a punishing climate. Conflict trackers say Africa, the Sahel in particular, has experienced quadrupled levels of violence in the past decade, and the past year has seen fatalities peak. Almost 10,000 deaths from attacks have been recorded, mostly in Mali and Burkina Faso, according to data from the African Center for Africa Center for Strategic Studies.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief, moving to Rwanda. Now, Felicien Kabuga, the octogenarian alleged financier of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, should be urgently released after a court declared him unfit to stand trial in The Hague, United Nations appeal judges ruled on Monday. A special war crime tribunal committed an error of law in June when it decided that Felicien Kabuga should be tried via a simplified procedure. Despite his state of health, the judges said, ordering the court to rapidly examine the problem of Mr. Kabuga's pretrial detention. Now, the former businessman, who is aged 88, according to the authorities, but claims to be 90, is accused of having founded and financed a radio station that called for hatred and motivated the killers who massacred around 800,000 people in the Rwanda genocide in 1994. Now, the judges of the Court of Appeal decided to refer the case back to the trial chamber with a request that if it declared an indefinite stay of proceedings due to Mr. Kabunga's unfitness to stand trial, they admitted that this decision must be disappointing for the victims and survivors of the 1994 Rwanda genocide who have waited for a very long time for justice to be done. Now, the ruling added, but justice can only be served by organizing fair trials conducted with full respect for the rights of the accused. The judges pointed out that in June, medical experts had concluded that Mr. Kabuga was suffering from severe dementia. Arrested in Paris in 2020 after 2 decades on the run, the accused, who uses a wheelchair, went on trial in September and pleaded not guilty. Crossing over to Senegal, Senegal's opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has been on hunger strike since he was arrested after a 2-year standoff with the government aid, and one of his lawyers said he was admitted to a hospital emergency on Sunday in Dakar.
Senegal's jailed opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, who has been on a hunger strike for the past 8 days to protest charges against him, has been hospitalized, his party said on Sunday. Ousmane Sonko is a Senegalese politician, member of the National Assembly from 2017 to 2022, and mayor of the city of Ziguinchor since 2022. He's the president of the Senegalese African Patriot for Work, Ethics and Fraternity Party, PASTEF. He was a candidate in the 2019 presidential election under the banner of the Sonko President's Coalition and came third in that election with 15% of the vote behind Idrissa Seck and incumbent President Macky Sall. PASTEF, Mr. Sonko's party, was dissolved by the authorities. In a statement, the Patriots of Senegal for Work, Ethics and Fraternity Party, PASTEF, said Sonko has been admitted to the emergency room at a hospital in the capital, Dakar, noting that prior to his imprisonment, he was in good health and had no known illnesses. The party said President Macky Sall and his government will be fully responsible for everything that happens to him. The authorities have not commented on the matter. Mr. Sonko, 49, went on hunger strike on July 30, 2 days after his arrest. Local media reports indicated that Sonko was refusing food in prison, where he was detained last month in protest against his detention over multiple charges that include calling for an insurrection and conspiracy against the state. Sonko, a presidential hopeful whose political party was dissolved by the government, was detained at the end of last month at Sebikotan prison just outside Dakar. Sonko was arrested on July 28 and a court in Dakar ordered his detention on July 31. He reportedly began a hunger strike on July 30. Sonko announced his hunger strike in a Facebook message before being detained. In the face of so much hatred, lies, oppression, persecution, I decided to resist. I observed from this day, July 30, a hunger strike, he wrote, also calling on all political detainees to do the same. Sonko was in June sentenced to 2 years in prison for corrupting youth, which undermines his chances of running for president. Some Senegalese are of the opinion that the government of Macky Sall is doing everything possible to disqualify Ousmane Sonko from contesting for the upcoming elections in Senegal. On July 4th, 2023, millions across Senegal let out a sigh of relief when President Macky Sall announced in a nationwide address he would not run for a third term. A 2016 constitutional referendum barred presidents from serving more than 2 5-year terms, but Sall, elected 4 years earlier, had long maintained that he was eligible to stand for another mandate. The new law, he argued, effectively resets the clock on his term limits. Despite Senegal posting solid economic growth in recent years, analysts and voters stated that the lack of jobs for the country's burgeoning youth population will remain a top and difficult priority for the next administration.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Golfe TV Africa, and it's still the news hour. Now we're crossing over to the African newspaper review, touching the stories that are trending on various African countries. Now today we're going to be starting on the front page of The Nation, Nigeria. And this is the top story I'm going to be taking on the pages of The Nation, Nigeria. Now, security clearance delays El Rufai and Okotete Danladi. And it says Senators Oke, Kiamu, Bagudu, Umayi, De Abu, and 39 others. And this is talking about the ministerial list that just came out in Nigeria. So far in the history of Nigeria, since Nigeria's 1960 independence, this is the largest ministerial list that's actually come out. And most of the people on the ministerial list are very excited. They're saying that they are ready to work, they are ready to hit the ground running. But Nigerians have a whole lot of expectations from the new ministers and are very enthusiastic. Some are enthusiastic and hopeful that truly they would be able to deliver on their promise. Now, moving away from that, we're still definitely on the pages of The Nation, Nigeria, crossing over to this. Now, this story says the Economic Community of West African States plans review of Niger junta's position. A deadline was given to Niger considering the recent coup that just occurred in Niger, and ECOWAS, led by the Nigerian president, the chairman, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, gave them a one-week ultimatum to restore the democratically elected president, President Bazoum. But now the one-week ultimatum has expired, and ECOWAS and Niger and the junta in power is actually saying they've closed their airspace, and Mali and Burkina Faso are actually showing their solidarity for Niger. Now the situation of things is that the international community, African community, and the whole world is literally looking at ECOWAS to see their next course of action. But the new situation on ground is that ECOWAS is saying they would have an emergency meeting on Thursday. Everyone is expecting to see what the emergency meeting would lead to and the decision that will come from the emergency meeting on Thursday. Now that is still on the pages of The Nation, Nigeria. Now let's move up. This story is saying I sold jobs for 1.5 million at federal agency, says ex-worker. Now let me just give you the gist of this story. Now this ex-worker was working with one of the federal parastatals in Nigeria, and normally federal jobs are usually very difficult to get for Nigerians. Now he said that he's working closely with his boss. So if a Nigerian comes up and says, oh, I want to work in your organization, the Nigerian pays between 1 million naira to 5 million naira. That is like the Nigerian pays between $1,000 to $5,000 just to get a job in the federal parastatal. Now, what's the twist of the story? The twist of the story is when the money is paid to his account, he withdraws it from a POS and gives the cash to his boss. Now, I watched the procedure yesterday, and the boss was vehemently swearing that she doesn't know him, she doesn't know anything about it, and she has never collected money to give people jobs. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg showing the level of corruption happening in Nigeria, not just Nigeria, some other African countries, talking about the fact that it's not about people that are actually really excellent, but it's about people that have money to actually get the federal job. Now, I hope the man serves justice and also his boss serves justice. That is away from the pages of The Nation, Nigeria. Now let's move away from The Nation, Nigeria, crossing over to the front page of the Namibian Sun. Let's see the stories that are making the round on the Namibian Sun. Okay, today on the Namibian Sun, the stories are not so much, but any which ways, we're definitely going to read the stories that are on the front page of the Namibian Sun. Okay, we have that on the pages of the Namibian. On the Namibian today, this is the top story. It's talking about a municipality urged to prioritize service delivery, and it says Katura residents power pressure on city. The residents claim that the municipality is illegally disconnecting households with prepaid electricity meters who owe money on their water accounts. Now the question is, why should you be owing money? And if you're owing money, you refuse to pay your dues, should you not be disconnected from the amenities? Sometimes people just want to reap where they do not sow. If you know you don't want your water to be cut, if you know you don't want your electricity to be cut, then simply pay your bills and everybody will live happily ever after. But anyway, I'm giving giving you the stories that are trending on the Namibian Sun. Now, still on the Namibian Sun, it says, seals give fishermen sleepless nights. How are they giving fishermen sleepless nights? If you're curious, you can check the pages of the Namibian Sun. And the last story says, taxman breathes down Nida's neck, on the pages of the Namibian Sun. If you're curious of more of that story, you could check the stories and the pages of the Namibian Sun. But we're going to be moving away from that. Let's go quickly to the front page, Liberia. Let's see the stories that are making the round on the front page, Liberia. Okay. Now on the front page, Liberia, this is the story that is trending. Now the story says, it's talking about campaign, but let me just zoom that a bit so you'll be able to see clearly. Now it's talking about campaign, and it's saying this, that with the campaign period for 2023 president election officially open, we continue our analytic profile of the leading presidential contenders, and it's saying the rescuers. And this story says, members of Sierra Leone Army in Liberia following up on the arrest of ex-chief superintendent of police in Monrovia as he is being investigated for treason. Now, this is a very serious offense in Africa, not just in Africa, but generally around the world. And our dear viewers, this is where I conclude today's edition of the African Newspaper Review, and also the news edition with Hazel Ogoige, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa. Thanks for tuning in. Join us by 6 p.m. for Focal Point. Enjoy the rest of your day.